Sean, tell people a little bit about yourself, tell people who you are, what you do, and kind of a quick background for some of the listeners here.
Sure thing. Hi, my name is Sean McDowell. I'm Senior Vice President at Sperry. I'm in charge of product creation here. I had a 22-year career at Nike, and so that's what probably some people would know me for, but really excited to be able to kind of turn the Sperry brand around.
Yeah, it's crazy. And if you'll notice, I'm wearing both models
Nice.
of these shoes that
Look at you go.
Just showed up. And they're great. I was actually just telling Morgan a little while ago, it's a totally new direction for the brand, I think. And it's something that you guys haven't made before. And it's like, it's fun. Like, it's something that I would wear. I'm a sneakerhead for sure. Like, I have a problem. And
how many shoes do you have, would you say?
200, something like that. So
that's
enough,
pretty good.
Enough to have
that
a
would
problem.
that would be better for my wife. I think I'm pushing close to 1,000, and it takes over most of the storage in the attic. So she's not a happy camper.
Close to 1,000. Okay, so I gotta push the limit a little bit here, and I'm clearly not up to snuff to be full sneakerhead yet. But I
worked at a lot of footwear brands for a long time. I'm a size 9, which is sample size, and a lot were for free. So I feel like I'm cheating a little.
What can I ask you then? A very important question. If you had to pick a couple pairs out of that collection that you're very proud to show off of, what do you got?
Oh yeah. I mean, I love Jordan. So, sort of Jordan 1, Jordan 3, Jordan 11, those are some of my favorites.
Yep.
But I worked in Nike running for a long time, and I designed a lot of shoes. So there's something special about owning a shoe that you design and wearing it.
Yeah, for sure. And we should probably talk about some of that stuff. So, I mean, you worked at Nike for 22 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's completely insane to me. And I mean, you've designed some of the shoes that people will know very well. You were creative director on Vaporfly, the Air Max Plus One, which sold over 9 million units. I mean, that kind of stuff is absolutely insane to me. So talk to me a little bit about what that process looks like for you, how you come into designing stuff like that, and why you even started designing shoes in the beginning.
Yeah, I didn't know that I was going to be a designer. I grew up in Ithaca, New York, which is a really quiet town.
Yep.
And I was the kid kind of in the neighborhood who was always drawing or sketching, or I'd fix your radio for you. Or if Adam was running for school president, I would do posters for you, all over the school. I was that guy. And I didn't think that could turn into a career, but I had a counselor who said, why don't you think about this as a career? And so I went to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh and studied industrial design. And I ran track. So I grew up kind of a track kid. Okay. And a job at New Balance opened up, and I loved that as a foundation. And then that sort of led to the Nike job. So it was really I think I was sort of born a designer, and I just stumbled onto it and found it. And I'm just so happy that I did, because I'm really had fun the entire time.
Yeah. And obviously we'll kind of transition into some Sperry stuff here, but I have obviously a lot of questions about your past career as well. I mean, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is what you draw inspiration from. For example, Air Max Plus, I read an article on Sneaker News that suggested you drew inspiration from beaches in Wales, how do you get inspiration for stuff that you design?
Yeah, I think it comes from everywhere. I think once you sort of get into that design mode, you see possibilities everywhere. So yeah, that's sort of a famous story. I was taking a vacation. I was in Florida, and I was watching the sunsets and sort of the palm trees on the sunset. And we went on a whale watching trip, and I sort of took those elements and built a shoe out of it. That would be one time. There's other times where you really geek out on the technology. So Vapor Max itself was, how can we get something really lightweight, very, very cushioned, very flexible, create sort of the ultimate Vapor Max, and what would that look like? And so the engineering sort of takes over, and you create the pods that need to fit and flex with your foot. And so that becomes dominant. So I would say every project's different, and inspiration can come from anywhere. It can come from your kids. It can come from butterflies. It can come from going to the zoo. It can come from a conversation like this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always been a crazy thing for me to kind of think about is you see this product come out and you always wonder like, what does that story look like? How do people come up with these ideas? Especially some of the more iconic ones. Like, I mean, Air Max Plus is a shoe, like I said, 9 million units. Like that's not nothing. That's a lot of shoes to be selling. And I guess that's always the thing is how do you decide that, okay, I like this design, but I don't know if it's going to actually work for a consumer, right? Because those are two different things. Like when I was starting off in sales, they always told me, or when I was starting off as a buyer, they always told me, don't just buy what you like, buy what you think is going to sell, right? So I assume that some of that goes into design as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the start of the Max Plus One, I did kind of a deep analysis on what were the best selling Maxes of the time.
Okay.
And so I took some of Sergio Lozano's Air Max 95 and I tried to kind of break it down. There was kind of a gentle fade on that. There was Christian Tresser's Air Max 97, which had lots of fluidity and called attention to the airbag. And I'm like, trying to sort of dissect what the winners were, what was the best selling stuff at the time, and then created something new and fresh based on that analysis. But that was a funny one too. Like the team at Foot Locker did not like the design. They did not think it was good the first season. And it was nice to, have it sell over time.
Does that, how much does that impact your confidence in the product that you put out? Because like when you have a big buyer like Foot Locker, that's like, I don't know. Does that rattle you at all? Or do you have enough confidence in the stuff that you design at this point in your career that you're like, I know it's going to work. Like I feel good about this. So I think it's going to work regardless of what anybody else says.
I think now, yeah, I mean, I'm 30, 35 years in. So I feel like I've got good instincts on what's going to work and what's not going to work. But there are really subtle differences between the biggest wins and a colossal failure. And sometimes, it's just a hair or a couple degrees off.
Yeah. And I think you see that a lot in sneaker culture where like a shoe will get dropped, like the leak will get dropped. And then everybody on the internet will be like, this is shit. Like, this is terrible. We don't like this. And then you'll see subtle tweaks come out. And Nike's really good at this, where you'll see subtle tweaks in materials and design that then all of a sudden it works and it clicks with the audience. Yeah. So it seems like people are really good at design at Nike and at other brands at just adapting to what the consumer wants without letting it completely control what they do.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of credit to the review process. There's sometimes that you come up with the first sketch, you get an early prototype in, and you want to make improvements on that. And you have sort of some friends and colleagues critique it, just like any piece of artwork. And that's also how it makes some pretty big improvements through the process.
And so this is maybe a little bit of an inside baseball question, and it's probably the last question I'll ask in relation to Nike or other brands, but are you guys the one that leaks these things? Like, or is it somebody inside that is like, I want this to go out into the world? Or is it somebody that just happens to have access, a friend, like it's an actual leak? Because I always wonder, does the company decide that it leaks? Because those kind of things work.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that it works. I know from my perspective, we hated leaks, and Nike did everything they could to shut down those leaks. And they've prosecuted people for leaking products.
Really?
So yeah.
That's hilarious.
So I always like it when it's brand new and fresh to the marketplace and it's a nice surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess you see it in music a lot too, where the song will come out and it's almost an intentional leak by whoever's producing it so that people kind of get hyped. Like I just saw it on the new song that's coming out on Friday, but they'll leak little bits of it so that people get excitement. But I think that that's, and you can tell me one way or the other, but I think that that's a valuable part of releasing something new and different, especially if it's an already established product. I get it if it's a brand new product, but if it's like if you're releasing a new Dunk, then I think people know what a Dunk looks like. The graphic just gets them excited to go and buy it. And like somebody like me goes and marks it on their calendar when there's a projected release date.
Yeah. I would say the other company that's excellent at this is the automobile industry. They're so good at controlling those leaks and having them be at the right moments. Even sometimes the movie industry.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Sometimes it can be very effective if you use it correctly.
Speaking of the movie industry, I did want to ask you about this because it's kind of ridiculous. Like, and it's a ridiculous thing in a good way to have on your resume, but costume design for Spider-Man, what What did that look like? Can you tell me anything about what that process
Yeah, so
was?
I was running footwear designer, and I came up with a shoe called the Kukini, which was a triathlon shoe with a stretch TPU web on it. And Jim Atchison was the costume designer for the original Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi version. And Jim called Mark Parker at Nike and said, "Who designed this shoe? Can he come down and work with my team for a couple of weeks?" And Mark was amazing and said, "Sure." And so I went down to Hollywood and worked with Jim and the whole team. You know, it's a team of 25 amazing creative people that are building the costumes. And so we did Tobey Maguire's costume. You know, the entire outfit is the same TPU material that we did on the Kukini. If you look really closely on the actual fabric, it's the same as the sock liner of the Kukini. So all those little ovals were replicated on Tobey Maguire's costume. So that same sublimation. And then we also did Willem Dafoe's foam posit for the Green Goblin.
That's amazing. Like that. It's so crazy that that kind of opportunity comes up in design.
Yeah. Yep. Amazing. Like once in a lifetime experience. I was the first person to try on the Spider-Man costume.
No way.
So that's like a dream come true. I was a super comic book geek as a kid growing up and still kind of am. So being able to try that on like in the studio, you feel like a superhero.
That's incredible. That's really, it's funny. You never think that sneaker culture influences so many different things, but it does. It ties into so much of what the real world does.
Especially today. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially today, for sure. You're starting to see people. And I think that's, again, it's part of what a lot of the brands have done with like these drops, and it's like new sneakers, and it creates like a new want for people to have all of this, like this fresh idea, fresh design, the newest thing. And new collabs, I don't know. It kind of blows my mind to see where it's gone, especially over the past 5 years or so.
Yeah. Yep. Big changes over the last 30 years.
Okay. So Sperry, talk to me about what that transition was like. You're now in a totally different position, and you're kind of changing a company, in my perspective, for the better. For people that can't see, like I'm wearing two of the shoes that are on the new roster. And it's very different. I told you this right off the rip. It's different from what Sperry's made in the past, and it actually seems to make almost more sense to what, you know, Sperry's core audience is, right? Like it's very in line with what Sperry is, I don't know, marketed towards, but it's almost more function.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I love turning brands around. That's been something that's been really important for me. And so coming into Sperry, it's been depressed for the last couple of years. And so coming in with a fresh lens and saying, geez, we've got an 85-year history. This is incredible. You've got some real iconic shoes, the authentic original, the very first boat shoe. We did the circular vamp Oxford in 1930s. Like we have done some really iconic shoes over the years. Can you celebrate that history, but then bring it into the 21st century? And so the first thing right when I walked in the door was to start working on this Sperry Sport collection. And I've always loved a balance of lifestyle and performance at brands because you really hit two different types of consumers. And so we went back to Paul Sperry's original vision of how can we make the best water sport shoes in the world? What does that look like? And so we started getting in and doing focus groups on Zoom during the pandemic, which I've never done before, where you're like, someone's taking their camera onto a boat and they're taking you through like, here's what I need, you know, from start to finish. And I'm scribbling down notes and the whole team is kind of working. It was a really, really fun process to go through that. And I love inventing new things. And I had never really done this type of product before.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about what kind of inspiration went into these things, because like I look at this and I'm sure everybody looks at this and they go, okay, Crocs, right? Because it's the first thing that you think of because it's rubberized but I will tell you, this fits a lot better than a pair of Crocs. Like, and it's not soft. It's actually pretty rugged. It's got some material to it. So talk to me about what the thought
I think that's
process
right.
was.
Yeah. I'll take you through sort of the performance side and then sort of the aesthetic side. The performance side, there's really like three key features that came up across the board. One is I need hydrophobic materials. If I'm on the water, I don't want it getting wet and soggy and smelly. Like that's the worst thing that you could have. So we'll do the opposite of that. The second is I need good wet traction. Like it's slippery on like tile surfaces when you're on a pool deck or on your boat. I don't want to slip. That's sort of the number two thing. And then the number three thing is sometimes when I'm on the boat, it gets like really choppy and I need to prevent that vibration from sort of shock waves through my entire kinetic chain. So can you make it soft and comfortable and moderate some of that pressure? And so that was on the performance side. Those were things that we were baking into a lot of the products. And then from a cosmetic side, you'll see on all of these shoes, they have kind of a 45-degree stripe on all of them. That came from the U.S. Coast Guard. The U.S. Coast Guard has two stripes, a red and a blue. And when you see that, it gives a lot of confidence to boaters when they're out on the water, right? They can get rescued by the Coast Guard. And so we wanted to kind of convey some of that, authority and presence and speed, but also the confidence that you would have from the U.S. Coast Guard. So we stole a little bit of that and put that into the whole line, and that really like pulled things together.
Yep.
So then you're talking about the water strider that's on your foot.
Yep.
And you're exactly right. I mean, just being totally transparent, there were a lot of people that said, I like Crocs because it doesn't absorb any moisture. If let's say I catch a fish and I have to clean the fish and it gets guts all over the place, like I can just hose that shoe down. It's pretty good.
Yeah. But
Crocs are very slippery. They don't fit very well. And if you fall off the boat, they actually fall off as well. So we created something that we call plunge worthy. So we scanned over 3,300 feet to get sort of an optimum shape. And it fits really, really well. It's very comfortable, especially in the heel. So it kind of cradles your heel. Yeah. And if you jump off the boat, these stay on your foot. And then it has our best wet rubber traction on the bottom and kind of in the heel and the forefoot. So it gives you excellent traction wherever you're going on any wet surface.
Yeah. It's really funny because there's no, like Crocs always talks about that sport mode, right? And that's like kind of the running joke on the internet is put them in sport mode and you can do whatever you want, but it's not true. They still fit like garbage. I have Crocs obviously, right. But this has nothing on the back. Yet a size 11 fits like a size 11 for me. And it is like, I feel like my heel is locked into the point where it's almost like a ski boot. Like my heel is down and it feels secure. Like I could go run in this thing if I wanted to.
Yeah, I do think that people have been doing a lot of different activities in them and it's been really fun. They're scrambling on rocks. They're doing paddle boarding. They're doing kayaking, a lot of different events and activities.
So what is the next step for you guys look like in terms of design of these things and in terms of like adding more colors, more like, are you kind of taking some of the inspiration like in the versatility, I guess, that you had at Nike and applying that towards what Sperry's doing? Because I feel like there's this, especially with this shoe in particular, there's a lot of opportunity for different colors, for people to really get behind it and for people to kind of expand what they have in their closet, I guess.
That's exactly right. No, and I think it's really astute of you to sort of see that there's a lot of potential here. So we've been having excellent sales so far. That's been really fun for us, is to just see like the community has really embraced what we've created. And so that makes you feel great. And then you just want to keep following up and keep it fresh. So, we've got that shoe, that water strider coming with a new carbon fiber print on top of it. We've got great new colors coming. The women's colors look gorgeous. It's really nice to be able to do both genders. I think that's one of the things that Sperry's always been good at is men's and women's products. So fun new collection coming soon.
Yeah, I got to say some of the women's product looks, better than the men's. Like the colorways are amazing. I think you guys nailed it on that. I guess one of my other questions is like, what did you think when you walked into Sperry? What did you think needed addressing, right? Because to me, looking from the outside in, 10 years ago or so when I was in high school and transitioning into college, it was like the frat boy shoe, right? It was I wear pink shorts and I wear Sperry's and that kind of died out after a while, right? So what was some of the things that you felt needed addressing at Sperry?
Well, I would say that was the first thing was, okay, we invented the world's first boat shoe. and it's so iconic. You've seen it for 85, 86 years. How can we make that fresh again? And how can we, penetrate a larger audience and a more global audience? How can we get out of that frat boy image and get to, more diversity and inclusion? And part of that is working with people like John Legend and different collaboration partners, and really broadening how we show up in the world. It's been really nice for us because Preppy is starting to make a comeback and the boat shoe is starting to make a comeback. So for the first time in about 8 years, we're having, our best sales in boat shoes.
It's crazy because this is a time when you guys have like direct competitors in boat shoes and in waterproof wear that are being worn on a regular basis for people who aren't even necessarily boat people. Like Extra Tough has kind of blown up. Like you think about that shoe, and I know tons of people that just wear them around because they want a waterproof shoe. And these kind of fit the same bill as that. They just look better. They're just more stylish and they fit.
Yeah. And I think there's one other feature that's really on that Cutwater deck boot. We created a new perforated neoprene that circulates air all around your foot. So it's much more breathable and comfortable. So it doesn't become a sweat box.
Yeah.
And like you said, the fit is something we really, really obsessed. So many times you'll wear those big rubber boots and it's like a galoche. It's like really wide open at the top and sort of a sloppy fit. This is much more tailored. It looks beautiful on the body. And we feel like that we're getting great feedback from a lot of our fishermen and oystermen that are wearing the product today.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I also want to ask, what do you find benefit in working with somebody like a John Legend, right? Because you see all these collabs with kind of icons in culture, working with shoe brands. Like, I guess Pharrell's a good example. John Legend's a good example. There's a bunch of people out there that are making these collections and having input in brands that you wouldn't necessarily expect right off the bat, but it seems to me from the outside looking in that it makes a difference in the way that a shoe sells, and also in a way that people start to look at a company. So, I mean, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, over the years, I've had a great opportunity to work with so many different people, from the athletes like a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Johnson to, Virgil Abloh on the lifestyle side, or a Miley Cyrus or Tyler, the Creator. So everyone's a little bit different, everybody that you work with. John was phenomenal, like really, really engaged. It was a pandemic, so he wasn't able to go on tour and do concerts. So we actually had more access. He took us into his closet with his iPhone and sort of showed, like, I like this, I like that. I've got this huge collection of watches. He's got an electric Porsche that's incredible. Like, there were so many areas of inspiration. And then we would send him shoes, and he had lots of creative ideas on how to make it better or different or fit his personality. So some collaboration partners are really engaged, and that's when you love it the most, because it stretches your brand, it pushes you to a new space. And I think we got great, bang for our buck from working with John.
And since you brought it up, I'm going to ask you a Kobe Bryant question, because I'm probably one of the bigger Kobe Bryant fans that I know, at least. What was it like working with him on projects? What did you get that kind of feedback from somebody like that? And obviously, rest in peace to Kobe, because that was one of my, whenever I think about things growing up, like, he was my biggest inspiration as a child, was to like go and play basketball and work really hard. Like, those are the two things that guy kind of instilled in me. So what was the experience like working with him?
Super intense. He, out of all of the athletes that I've worked with, he obsessed every millimeter of every product in a really good way. Like, he would push us to create all new products from scratch. And it got you thinking differently. And that's what you want in some of these collaboration partners. And he would try on the shoes and test the shoes and make sure that they were working, and come back with ideas and suggestions, or sandpaper things, like, I need a little more radius on this side, like, he was crazy in the best possible way.
Yeah. That's insane to me that you've worked with some of these people. So, and especially Virgil too. Like, I've got that Virgil Icons book sitting next to me right now. So, very cool. I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about, I imagine people ask you how to get into design, how to start a career in design, especially young designers, like it's easy to get frustrated in this space where you're like, I'm trying stuff and it's not hitting and I'm not getting an engagement on it, or I'm applying for jobs and I'm not getting them. What advice do you give to those people when that gets prompted?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. One, it's so fun to see young sneaker collectors that are interested in being part of the community and designing for us. It's one of the best things in the world, and I love talking to young designers or lecturing at colleges and universities and trying to get people excited and inspired. It's one of my favorite things to do. I would say if you're bumping up against roadblocks, one, keep working on your portfolio. That tends to be the number one thing. If you got a rock star portfolio, you're going to get job opportunities. There's no question about it. So keep working on your craft. Some people think, oh, I did a sketch and therefore someone should hire me. It's much more complicated than that. Like, keep working on your craft, become a great artist and a designer, talk to consumers. That's where you get the best insights. If anyone has a problem that they're sharing, like we were talking about with Sperry Sport, I slipping on the deck of my boat, that is an opportunity to solve a problem that will help you create something new. So always look for problems to find solutions to. That tends to be, one of the best things that you can do. And that's really helpful in any job interview. I went out, I did a consumer focus group. I talked to consumers. They told me this, therefore I built a product like that. I would also say that people think, oh, I'm going to apply to Nike or Adidas or the big ones first. I started at New Balance. I think there's a lot of people that start at smaller companies. They learn the craft a little bit, and then they can kind of work their way up the food chain.
Yeah, I guess it's important to kind of keep your, I always think about whenever we partner with a new brand, my goal is to always be big fish, smaller pond, make a bigger impact on the company that we work with and try to move forward from that. And I think sometimes that mindset works really well. Sometimes it doesn't work well, but I'd rather do that than be a medium fish in a gigantic pond. And because then you kind of just get overlooked. You don't have the same impact on the brand that you could one way or the other. And I think once you impact a brand, as you were saying, in one way, you kind of have that opportunity to move to that next step, move to a bigger brand and show, hey, this is what
That's right. At those huge companies, sometimes you feel like a cog in this enormous machine.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's nice about some of the small companies is you really learn a lot of different aspects and you can have an impact right away.
Yeah. Awesome. Couple more questions, then I'll let you go. What is next for you guys? What is your goal at Sperry going forward?
Yeah, I think keep building the momentum that we've got. So I mentioned the boat shoes. That's one of our big pillars. That's starting to come back now. And so we're constantly bringing fresh new ideas there. Boots has always been kind of a strong pillar of ours. So wet weather boots, rain boots has been great. So bringing fresh new ideas there. And then we've had a stable of vulcanized sneakers for quite some time. We did the first circular Vamp Oxford. We've got boat shoes that are sneakers. Which that hybrid is feeling like that's a new trend that's coming up. And then this fourth pillar of Sperry Sport that we talked about. So I think that's the portfolio that we tend to look at is these four pillars, and each one has its own unique challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm psyched to see where it goes. My last question for you is, why do you live in Massachusetts? Why Mass? Like I also am in Mass, and I wonder why I live here, and I imagine our reasonings are very different, but I'd like some insight on that as somebody who considers moving all the time but ends up staying here.
Yeah. No, and we did the launch for Sperry Sport down in Miami, and it was gorgeous, in February. And you wonder those questions sometimes too, when it's like the heart of winter and you're getting these 24-inch snowstorms. It does feel good to live in warm places. So I love the Four Seasons. I love the sports of Boston. I love the culture. I love the medical community. There's so many universities and colleges that we can tap into from an innovation perspective. So there's a lot of real benefits to Boston. It's a cool sort of smaller city that wants to be bigger. So I love all of those aspects. If I could wave a magic wand and have a little less snow in the wintertime, that would be good for me.
Yeah, and obviously the people in Boston are notoriously very kind, friendly, and open. So, I mean, that's I guess a bit. Yeah, I always look at it
and some of the best drivers in the world.
Yeah, Yeah, that's well noted for sure. I always think about it like I like where I live because it feels like home, right? I'm always excited to leave, but then you get the opportunity to come home and it's like I'm home and nobody's bothering me. Like this is where I am. I don't feel the need to like go be a psycho, like versus you go out west or you go to like Miami or San Francisco and you're like there's so much stimulation going on that it almost feels to the point where you're like I don't need this all the time.
Yeah, right.
For
right.
sure.
Nice to visit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Sean, thank you. I can't thank you enough for the time. I appreciate it. If people want to contact you, where can they find you? Where can they find the shoes, obviously, and obviously anything else you have to plug? Feel free. This is the time.
Yeah, Sean.McDowell@Sperry.com is email. Feel free to reach out anytime. Sean McDowell on LinkedIn, pretty easy to find there. So yeah, feel free. Always love supporting young, new artists and designers kind of growing up through the industry. And always good to connect with you, Adam. You know, you've got great business, and it's nice that you're such a sneakerhead and you know the products really well. So it's fun to talk it through.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sean. We'll talk to you soon.